Yeah. Oh, skipped a slide already, sorry. Perfect. I'll give it 30 seconds and let people come in, and then we will kick off this morning. My screen is on full, so I can't see anyone that's joining, so I will literally give it 30 seconds and kick off. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Perfect. So let's get going. So this morning, I am joined by the lovely Sophia, who's one of the partner account executives over at Citrus HR, as well as Paul, who's the managing director of Cloud Accounting Support Services. And today we are going to be talking all about cracking the code and unlocking payroll and payments. So let's dive straight in. In terms of agenda for the day, we're going to kick off with what is wrong. So what's not working? Why does Citrus HR exist? Why does Telleroo exist? And why are wonderful accountants like Paul and his team using our integration to support those challenges? We'll then move into a little bit of a show and tell. So thinking about how Citrus HR supports businesses and accountants, how we do the same, and then the actual integration itself. And then following that, a nice little Q&A to round things off. So that said, there is a Q&A box at the bottom. Please do use that. Pop your questions in there. No such thing as a silly question. We are happy to answer them all. But yeah, please do any questions in the Q&A box, and feel free to leave any comments in the chat box as well. So Paul, handing it over to you to start with, what would be really great is just to understand from your perspective what the challenges are from a payroll and payments perspective.
Okay, so some of the challenges that we faced prior to the integration is very much one of paying staff the wrong values, which is not uncommon, or has not been uncommon. The time-consuming element of preparing the pay run, then having to go into the bank, then actually manually entering each individual or doing a backs upload, and literally then the time that it takes various different people in the organization to actually approve pay runs. So depending on different levels of security within banks, if you can get into banks, someone's got to prepare them, someone's got to actually release them funds. So all of that just takes time. And whilst time and the efficiencies that brings are great, the biggest one is actually accuracy of paying staff the right value that is on their payslip. So I think those are some of the big challenges that we've faced, and the integration actually eradicates all of them.
Amazing. That's what we like to hear. I completely agree, right? I speak to businesses and accountants every single day, and everyone is having the exact same challenges, right? We're speaking to accountants that have got clients coming to them saying it's taking an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours on a weekly, monthly basis to sit and do exactly what you've discussed, right? Which is transposing numbers into online banking and inputting multiple card reader codes and key fob codes and you name it to try and get those processed, and then still ultimately getting it wrong, right? For whatever reason that might be. So it's really, really difficult, and we are very glad that we're able to start solving those problems. Sophia, over to you, just for a little bit of an intro on Citrus HR, if that's okay.
Thanks very much, Kaylee. So Citrus HR, we are as it says here, small business HR and payroll expert. So we have our own HR software, and we also provide HR support. We love working with small and medium businesses, particularly businesses who aren't quite big enough to have their own HR function, but they still have employees that they need to support, contacts they need to give, payrolls they need to run. So we are here to support those small businesses and their clients.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Paul, anything you want to add to that in terms of your use of Citrus?
Yeah, we adopted Citrus probably about 18 months, 2 years ago, just internally, because we tipped that sweet spot of suddenly it isn't just about employing staff, it's the whole HR. So that for us, the magic spot was 5 employees, where certainly health and safety and additional employment responsibilities kicked in. I went searching because the payroll provider that we were on was great for payroll, but didn't give us everything else. So we adopted the HR first and then transitioned into the payroll. And I have to say, and yes, Sophia is on the call, it's one of the best software platforms that we've now adopted, and we push it across as many of our clients as they meet that, again, that same sweet spot of kind of, in our opinion, 5 employees.
Amazing. Do you feel that business owners are quite receptive to this? Like, is this something that they're actively searching for, or is it something they're quite surprised that you can then help and support with?
I think what we found is that where we kind of provide that outsourced solution, they're very receptive to our kind of proverbial app stack, that thing that's in our space now. And because we're that trusted partner, they very much lean on our knowledge, and being able to talk about using the platform for ourselves first, then lends itself to, actually, we talk with real confidence about what it provides, how it helps. And one of the best things for Citrus, and yeah, it might seem a bit of a sales pitch, is things like part-time workers and those variable hour contracts, with things like toil, with what holiday are people entitled to on each day of their week, depending on, they might work 6 hours on a Monday and only 3 on a Thursday. Well, they book a Monday off. Traditional payroll software would divide it by 5. Citrus says, well, they don't work the 3 days, and on this day they do 4, this day they do 6. So actually they're entitled to 6 days holiday for that day that they book. And that's what we absolutely love. And as I say, our clients now have adopted it, and continue to adopt it as and when it's right for them.
I'm sold. No, that's perfect. Thank you. And for the audience, just we haven't paid Paul for this, so this is genuine.
No. I'm not being paid, other than a cup of tea.
This is very, very genuine. Amazing, thank you. So over to the Telleroo side. So we are a bulk payments provider, so be that supplier payments as well as payroll payments. And really where this comes from is, as I said earlier, there are far too many business owners that are sitting logged into online banking, processing payments on an individual basis. And Paul mentioned an app stack, and actually what we've seen historically is that there are these beautiful app stacks built right up until the point of payment. And at that point, we push it back to business owners and go, off you go. And that's where all the mistakes and the issues start coming in. And so when you look at kind of life cycle of a business and where those various accounting software and systems come into place, typically there are those trigger points, right? If it's 5 employees that we now need to start thinking about HR support, tick. If it's actually they want to sell the business and we need to introduce some corporate finance conversations, tick. There's like really easy trigger points. And yet payments are made in businesses from the minute an idea is conceived around a kitchen table for a website developer right the way through to exit. And yet it still feels like one of the areas that just haven't been modernized and thought about as much. So that's very much where we come in. The whole idea is that we provide really seamless integrations into accounting softwares like Xero, into payroll softwares and systems like Citrus HR, to allow business owners and their accountants to really smooth out that process and make it as easy as possible. So have a portal, you log in, you connect up to wherever you need to, those payments are going to feed through seamlessly, and then we've got a really lovely approval process off the back of that that just gets rid of all that manual processing and all of that manual keying of data. Paul, anything I've missed?
I would say, and I'm assuming that we have accountants and bookkeepers on the line. This is a fantastic revenue generator for us, because what we're able to do now is extend that service from a excuse me, let's call it a purchase ledger perspective, the bills to pay, if we take Xero's terminology. We're able to now take that as an end-to-end solution. So we capture the data through software like Dext, we process it through Xero, but now we're able to provide that end service of, we can prep the payment for you. There are some internal controls that we put in, but the business owner, then we've prepped it, and all they need to do once they've signed it off is physically go and press one button inside Telleroo, and that will distribute their month end, quarter end, daily, whatever it is, payment run to all of the relevant suppliers. So for us, it's a revenue generator as well as a time saver.
I think that's a really important point, because I think, particularly in the accounting bookkeeper space, I think the phrase trusted advisor may have been slightly overused, but the reality is, if you think about even your personal bank account, giving someone access to that would be incredibly scary and is everything you're advised against doing ever, right? And yet, when I speak to a lot of accountants and bookkeepers around making payments, what they're typically saying is we have 1 or 2 clients that we do it for, and we don't really want to do it because it's risky, because it's this, because it's that. And actually, this is exactly like you say, this is where it comes in and allows you to offer that full outsourced finance function while still maintaining those controls that you need in place. Perfect. So enough about Telleroo on its own. Let's head back into integration world. So how does it work? I'm going to give you the very quick overview because it is nice and simple, so it doesn't take too long. So from a Citrus HR perspective, you're going to log in, you're going to go into your settings and connect to a bulk payments provider, as it suggests there. And actually, you've got Telleroo there in a drop down. You can choose who's able to submit those payments, and then you're going to connect up to Telleroo. So really, really straightforward. The key thing to note there is you are going to need a Telleroo account to connect to. So you're going to need to hop onto the Telleroo website and get yourself signed up there first. If you're an accountant or bookkeeper, you're going to need to add in whichever clients that you want to do that with. And I'm happy to take questions around what that process looks like. Again, Q&A box at the bottom. But once you've done that connection, effectively, you are able to start processing payroll payments really, really easily. So you're going to be in payroll, you're going to set that pay schedule and the pay period that you're looking at. And then you can see there in that lovely pink box is a button with the Telleroo logo that says Pay Now. And when you click on that, effectively what's happening in the background is that the information from Citrus HR is being pushed across into Telleroo as a batch of payments ready for approval. On our side, what that looks like is something like this. You're going to have a pay run created in Telleroo through you doing nothing more than pressing that button in Citrus. That's going to come across. You've got all of your payees listed out, so all of your members of staff. You're then going to see all the bank details, the reference, the date and time that it's scheduled for, and all of the amounts. And you can see they're all sitting there awaiting approval. Now, if you are a business owner, you can just approve that. If you're an accountant or bookkeeper, you've got a choice, like Paul said. Actually, you can have controls where this is going to the client to still have that final sign-off, or you can even have it set so that you can approve on their behalf. Whoever is approving, once they hit that button, that payment run will move across to being scheduled, and it will sit there until the scheduled date and time. Oh, skipped ahead loads there, sorry. To the scheduled date and time that's sitting there. Any point you can log in and reschedule that. So if you've scheduled it and realized you've made a mistake or you need to bring it forward, push it back, you absolutely can. And again, as soon as we get to that date and time, we will then start processing the payments. Everything is sent by faster payment, so it's effectively instant. We give the standard 2-hour warning, but it should be pretty much instant. It will move across to sending and then very quickly land in paid. You'll note in the middle there between scheduled and sending, there is a stage called awaiting funds. And the reason for that is because the way that Telleroo works is that we set up what's known as e-money accounts for each of the clients that you add in. Those accounts are opened in the business's name and have their own account number and sort code, as you can see there. And if the client's using Xero, you can connect that up and have a direct bank feed going in. But effectively, the way that the process works is if you've got a pay run like this, that's 3 payments for just over £1,300, all the client needs to do is transfer that amount into their e-money account to be able to process those payments. The beauty is that because that account is opened in their name, they can send the exact amount to the penny, or if actually transposing numbers has been the issue in the first place, they can send a nice round figure and they can actually maintain a balance in there. So one of the really nice benefits with this is that because they can hold a balance, if you have approval rights on their behalf, you can absolutely still process payroll and they can be sipping pina coladas on a beach somewhere and not have to worry about their stuff getting paid. Have I missed anything, Paul?
No, I think what I would say is, and we've all experienced this, and we continue to experience it. Somebody's missed overtime off their pay run. You can actually remove the pay run from Telleroo, go back into Citrus to correct, rerun your payroll, and then resync it, and it will bring across the new corrected value. So whilst we all like the fail safes that it's signed off, we've all got that last minute change, and Telleroo will handle it seamlessly. But and Citrus, to be fair, Citrus handled the first bit, Telleroo handled the second bit really seamlessly.
Amazing. The other thing I will just touch on there is just around reconciliation. If they are a Xero client, one of the really nice things is that payroll will come back as a single batch payment. So if you've got clients where there are multiple people accessing Xero and you don't want them to be able to have that breakdown of what everyone's getting paid, that's a really nice way of still having visibility for the people that need it, but keeping that transparency and confidentiality as well. Beautiful. Paul, I'm going to go back to you just to add a little bit of context. You've been using this, it's been working wonders, I'm sure. So it'd be good
Yeah.
just to understand.
Yeah, so I mean, the quote says it all. I think everybody in business will make mistakes. They'll pay a supplier wrong, but the one thing for me that sits really, really front and center is paying your staff and your client's staff. And actually, I don't want to get it wrong with payroll. If I overpay a supplier and just pay a supplier, it doesn't matter. But when you're playing with people's livelihoods, it has to be 100% right 100% of the time. And that's what this integration affords us. We are literally bringing in a client as we speak. The girls are working on the accounts now, where we've got that transposing of numbers and underpaying people by 10p or 96p's actually becomes 69p, and the reconciling of the wages control account just becomes a nightmare. So we are actually in the throes of transitioning a client that's got, I think it's about 14 staff, so not huge, into this environment that will absolutely change the way they work, save the business owner oodles of time, and avoid the errors, which then give us some time back to be able to do more beneficial things for the client. So yeah, that for me is the reason we've adopted Telleroo. And I know Sophia won't mind me saying this, we were originally with Xero Payroll, and that integration between Xero Payroll and Telleroo is as seamless as the Citrus HR to Telleroo. So if you are in Xero Payroll world, this is still a tool to use. But ideally, if you're at that 5-employee sweet spot, it is worth that transition into Citrus for the added benefits that you get for a not dissimilar cost to Xero's payroll on its own. So actually, there's a benefit to taking that on. But yeah, that integration has saved us loads. And just to go back to the point that you said around actually being able to authorize us as a bookkeeping firm to make payments on a client's behalf, we explored that pre-Telleroo, and our insurers were talking about increased premiums to be insured for the amount of money that was sat in the client's bank account if we were having access to the bank, at which point it became completely a non-starter. So when Telleroo came to the fore, it changed the way we were able to work. And it's not added thousands of pounds to our turnover, but that added service of being able to make the payments on behalf of the supplier, still with them in control, has added revenue to us, but given time back to the client. So yeah, we love it. And I can't say anything more about the whole integration between Citrus and Telleroo.
If you ever give up accounting, you could always come and work in sales at Citrus or Telleroo. Perfect. Thank you very, very much. I think it's so important to hear about it being used, right? Sophia and I are going to be biased. We think it's the best integration since sliced bread, but actually hearing how it's coming to life, how it's affecting business owners at the end of that cycle, how it's enabling you to be that fully outsourced support that business owners are absolutely crying out for is so, so powerful. So thank you, Paul. The other question we typically get asked, I think Paul's touched on this a fair bit in terms of clients that need this support, but is where do we start? Which clients do we look at? How do we get going with this? And whilst I said before, all clients are making payments and doing this, there are definitely certain clients that we typically see more and that I think benefit from being able to streamline that payroll to payment process. So there's just a few on here that I'll touch on. Businesses with more than 5 employees, like Paul said, that's typically that sweet spot where they start to really feel that pain. Everyone complains about being time poor, but those ones you really can never get hold of and know are absolutely worked off their feet are a really great place to say, hey, how about we take something else off your plate? Would that free up your time, and what can you do? And I think I always talk about this with people, is the fact that most business owners didn't start their business because they wanted to run the business, right? They started it because they had a real passion for what they were doing, or there was something out there that they wanted to do. Maybe they went self-employed so they could spend more time with their children, whatever it was, right? The reality is they definitely didn't set up their business to sit transposing payroll figures into their online banking. And so if you're able to take that away from them and really help them spend their time on driving towards those goals, absolutely brilliant. And it becomes way less about processing payroll and payments than it does about really helping them get where they're trying to go. In terms of sectors, entertainment, construction, recruitment, they're typically ones that have high payment volumes or are out of the office quite a lot. And so again, really see the benefit in having that taken away from them and just having to press a couple of buttons to approve and fund. And then, as Paul said, those that are making payment errors in the past, it might just be 10p here and there, but it's extra time that's spent rectifying it and making things reconcile as they should. And then the last one is really important. It's those that have suffered losses from fraudulent payments in the past. One thing that we do on the Telleroo side, and we've recently badged this the Telleroo Trust Check, but this is effectively what we're doing to combat fraudulent payments. So you've got confirmation of payee in there that's making sure bank account details match bank account names, similar to what you'd see in your personal banking. And then we have 2 flags that we show as well. One is for new payees to say, hey, you've never paid this person before, are you sure you want to do that? And that would flag up the first time you have a new employee, for example, it's going to go, hey, you haven't paid these guys before. But if you look at that name and you're like, yep, they're definitely an employee and that's definitely their bank details, you're good to go. But also updated. If someone's changed their bank details and they've been changed in the system, it's going to flag that to you so that, again, you still have that peace of mind to say, hey, did you actually change your bank details? Are these correct before those payments are made? My background is in commercial and corporate banking, and far too many times I had clients call up and say, we've made a payment somewhere that it shouldn't have gone. An email was intercepted, details were changed in a system. And actually you then go down the process of trying to recover those funds. And unfortunately, a lot of the time it is too little too late. And while sometimes the bank will offer a refund in terms of a gesture of goodwill, the reality is it's still a lot of stress. It's a lot of time spent on hold to call centres trying to rectify it, when actually you can go ahead and implement a system that's just going to prevent that in the first place. So definitely think about those clients as a place to speak to. Have we got any questions? I have a couple that were pre-submitted from people on sign up that I can run through, but if anyone has any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A. The first one I'll start with while people are still popping those in is for you, Paul, which is, how much time do you think the integration is saving you and the team?
So for us, the time saving, because we've only really transitioned people that have made those payments themselves, our time saving is probably a couple of hours a week maximum. But I think when you then talk to the clients that are making those payments, and we've got clients now using Telleroo that have got 18, 20, and in one case, I think it's about 70 employees, that's where we're able to quantify the time savings. And they pay their staff weekly, 70 employees, that is saving them about half a day a week in manually making those payments. So whilst we don't make a huge saving on our side because it's just part of our process, the client time savings are quite substantial, again, depending on number of employees.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Kaylee, if you don't mind, we've had a great question here in the Q&A. Does Citrus HR link to Xero? If you run payroll on Citrus HR, how do the payroll figures get into Xero for the accounts? That's a really great question. We do link to Xero, yes. So we also have an integration with Xero, and you can directly send across any figures, your payroll journals, expenses, etc. You can send them off at the click of a button as quickly as you can with the Telleroo integration straight across to Xero. So yeah, absolutely. All 3 of them work together really nicely.
Sophia, can I just add one thing on that? If you work with clients that have departments and want that ability to push the payroll journal into relevant tracking categories in Xero, as long as you map it in Citrus, it works. And actually, it works better than the Xero's integrated payroll for things like employer national insurance. In Xero's payroll, it will only go to one code, irrespective of what employee groups you have. In Citrus, the employer's national insurance element and their pension will actually go and sit in the relevant tracking category as long as it's mapped in that first stage of setting up the integration with Citrus and Xero.
Thank you, Paul. We've got a couple of other questions here as well. Does Citrus manage and calculate things such as maternity pay, or would this have to be manually added? So I'll obviously let Paul answer in a second from his point of view, but from our point of view, yes, we do. So the way that it works is when you set up your company, you can put all the information in, including any maternity or family payment schemes you've got in place. And then once you've set somebody up as going on maternity leave, they will calculate it all for you. Paul, have you got anything to add on that front?
No, it is exactly that. Maternity pay works the same as all of the payroll systems, start and end dates of actual maternity, and it will calculate exactly when their entitlement starts, when it ends, work what their average earning is to ensure that they are actually eligible for it in the first place. It's a seamless process, exactly the same as other payroll providers.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for that question, Emily. Next up, we've got a question from Mel. Can you manually add on additions and deductions on the payroll before approving? Yes, you can. So on our payroll, there is a section where you can make those manual deductions. You can go back, even if you've already calculated payroll, you can go back and make any changes that you need to for that pay period. That's no problem at all. And another question here from Anna. Does Citrus HR link to HMRC for tax code updates? Yes, it does. So automatically each month at the click of a button, you can send off all of your RTI information straight to HMRC. And if there are any tax code updates, they'll come back and then it will automatically be applied to the system. So you don't need to then go in and manually make those updates. So that's trying to make it as easy as possible for you. And we've got another question here. Can Telleroo payments be approved with a mobile phone app? If not, what is the actual process? Does it require two-factor authentication?
So currently no mobile app, but we are building one. That's hot off the press. So soon you will be able to. But the process at the moment would be that you receive an email saying that a new pay run has been created and needs your approval. You log into Telleroo, everything's listed out. You click on approve, and it does require two-factor authentication. That's done via whichever authenticator you prefer. Mine, for example, is Google Authenticator, just with the changing 6-digit code. So it's really, really easy to do. You can still do it on your mobile via the browser, and there is still a mobile experience for that, but not a dedicated app currently.
Any more questions?
The only one I had before the session, just to check in, was just around onboarding onto both software. So I'll let you kick off, Sophia.
Yes, so onboarding from a Citrus point of view, in terms of if you're interested for yourself or you've got a client who's interested, our customer support team are there to support you all the way. We don't charge any onboarding fees. We only charge for active employees on the system. Same with payroll, we charge per pay slip. If you're running it for yourselves. If you're more interested in our payroll bureau as an accountant or bookkeeper, I'd be more than happy to chat to you about that. And from a partnerships point of view as well, we don't have any kind of onboarding or charges to be a partner. So if you wanted to introduce us to your clients, or like I said, if you wanted to find out a little bit more about the payroll bureau side of things, it's a really, really easy process. We do all the heavy lifting for you because we know you've got other things that you need to be doing. But the idea is that we'll do the heavy lifting for you, but it's going to make your life easier in the long run. And what I will do also, if you are interested in finding out a little bit more about whether Citrus can work for you and also for your clients, I'll pop my meeting link into the chat as well. And then we can also talk about how, obviously, this integration can help benefit you and your clients too. I think Kaylee might be frozen.
Oh, am I back?
No, you're back. You're back.
Sorry about that. From a Telleroo perspective, still really straightforward. Again, no setup fees, no fixed commitment periods or anything like that. From an accountant and bookkeeper side, you sign up for your Telleroo portal. That takes 2 minutes and you're in, and you can start inviting clients in. And whether you are inviting a client or you are the client yourself, effectively, because it is payments and there are lots of regulations around financial services, we do have to capture an amount of information from a KYC, know your customer perspective. So that requires information around shareholders over 25%, some basic information around the business and what you're going to be processing from a payment perspective. we're then able to run some checks on our side and then get accounts open and up and running. And typically that process takes between 1 and 3 working days. Much quicker than opening most high street bank accounts, so still pretty straightforward there. But again, Help Centre has got tons of articles. You've got live chat on the website that gets answered in less than 5 minutes by a real person, and a phone number, which is becoming increasingly rare. So if you get really stuck, you're still able to pick up the phone and ask for any support that you might need. I think that's all we've got question-wise. So I will leave that there, but thank you very much to everyone that has joined us today. Hopefully the session has been really useful for you. We will send out a recording that you're welcome to share with your teams, with other people in the business as well. And that will also have links to both websites, etc. So if you need any additional information or support, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. But again, thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.